Hello! Welcome to the Tavern Between Dimensions, a monthly tabletop RPG podcast. My name is Carl Dudesh, and I shall be your bartender for your time here today. Joining me for service, as always, is the Dungeon Master to the Explorers of Elsewhere, Dan Tyree.
Bonjour!
And Scrooge McDuck's lifeguard, Anton Bain.
That is me. Good evening, good evening.
And because one of the dimensions is having a bit of a zombie apocalypse, and because apocalypse survivors spend money like there's no tomorrow, we've had to get some help here today in the form of Julia. Welcome to the tavern, Julia. This is your first time here.
It is indeed. I like what you've done with the place.
Thank you very much. We've had a little bit of work done, but it's still got a long way to go.
Mm-hmm.
It's got character.
It has got character, yes, and very many interesting patrons from all manners of dimensions.
And body odor.
A lot of body odor. I think with that, we're going to move into our first segment.
Let's go.
So firstly, we're going to go into Guest Ale, where we basically give our guests the floor to talk about whatever they like. And obviously our guest is Julia, who you may know as Badger from the Explorers of Elsewhere channel. Julia, I think firstly, for those who may not know who you are or haven't watched Explorers of Elsewhere, what is wrong with you? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Julia. I have been playing D&D since early 2016. I actually started at exactly the same time as Anton. So we both joined our first ever game alongside Dan. And if you've watched our Meet the Players recent video, you'll have heard us kind of joking around about the fact that Dan is the sort of D&D gateway drug, which does seem to be the way of things.
He is.
And I've been playing Badger, the Forest Gnome monk, in the Cormier campaign over on Explorers of Elsewhere, and recently have stepped away from that campaign for various reasons and with much regret, because it's been really, really good fun. But I had a fairly emotional goodbye as Badger in episode 28, was it? 28. Yeah. But had a lot of fun with that. And
You're now DMing. Correct?
I am now DMing a live at the table campaign of Wild Beyond The Witchlight with Dan and a group of other people local to us.
I mean, I've got a bit of a confessional. Like, realistically, the only reason I asked Julia on is to prove that I wasn't just making up that I'm part of that I'm a player in a campaign.
It's true, he is.
So I thought I'd bring the DM along to verify my claims.
That's a lie. You're a forever DM. You've always been a forever
DM.
Yeah, this is the second time I've DM'd, and the first time was also started as a live at the table campaign. It was Waterdeep Dragon Heist.
Yeah.
And then that had to convert to Roll20 because there was a worldwide pandemic that got quite a lot of news attention. But now with things as they are, world's beginning to open up a little bit more, we've decided to get back around the table with a group of local friends, and now we're playing Wild Beyond The Witchlight, which is a lot of fun.
That sounds amazing, because I know it's been mentioned a couple of times that Wild Beyond The Witchlight was being done, but again, there was no proof, so here's the proof.
Here's the proof, exactly. Yeah, no, so we've done like 3 sessions, is it, Dan, so far?
Next session is session 4.
Next session will be session 4, that's it.
So what made you pick up Wild Beyond The Witchlight?
My relationship with DMing has been quite interesting. I started out thinking I would never DM.
Never again.
Well, no, I just never in the first place. Like before Dragon Heist, I really didn't think it was for me. I got into D&D listening to podcasts like The Adventure Zone and really loved it. Loved the collaborative storytelling, the multitude of characters and all that sort of thing. But I've never felt very confident in myself as a DM. I'd say I'm still not a terribly confident DM, but there was a point where I really thought I'd never do it. And the reason I DM'd Dragon Heist was I heard about it, read a bit about it, and there was just something about the setting that really spoke to me. That
Yep.
urban adventure, the kind of the comedy of it, and all of that really appealed to me. And I thought I'd love to run that story. And just it was something about that adventure that just grabbed me, and I really loved running it. And it was
You
the
did
same
a
with
fantastic job. Yeah.
Thank you. And it was the same with Wild Beyond the Witchlight. Once I did Dragon Heist, I was like, whew, that was really fun, but a lot of work. I'm probably not going to do that again in a hurry. And how long has it been? A year and a half since Dragon Heist finished, and I picked up Wild Beyond the Witchlight, and again I just fell in love. And I said, this setting just really spoke to me, and immediately it was like, I want to DM that. That is for me. That is my adventure. So it's something about the setting and of the adventure and the kind of world that it's going to evoke. If I really feel drawn to it, then I will DM it. Basically, seems to be how I work.
I have to say, I'm a little bit envious that I don't live closer to you two, because I would love to have joined this. It sounds like it's amazing, and just like how different it plays to normal D&D adventures.
Yeah, it does, and I guess by design.
I mean, yeah, it's the one thing I noticed about, when we look at the adventures like Dragon Heist and Wild Beyond the Witchlight, is that they're completely different to some of the other Wizards books, like Out of the Abyss or Descent into Avernus or Curse of Strahd to a certain point.
Yeah.
I think what I really, really like about Wild Beyond the Witchlight is that it seems to be the first kind of bookmark in Wizards with this new adventure idea, like adventure philosophy about how they construct their systems and games. And I'm really looking forward to it, because it just seems like a perfect match. Just the cheekiness, the kind of the sly winks and the smirks that the book just kind of exudes.
Absolutely. I think what you were saying just then was spot on, Dan. There's something about a lot of the other modules that Wizards of the Coast has brought out for 5th edition D&D, where yes, there's always opportunity for comedy and for lightheartedness, but it's set within those grand, epic, heroic adventures. I feel like Dragon Heist and Wild Beyond the Witchlight both are quite different in scope and sort of scale, and also tone, where the tone is much more centered around comedy and whimsy and things being a bit silly. That's definitely one of the things that drew me to it.
I definitely find that Dragon Heist, for example, like it didn't feel like a murder hobo campaign. Like you were well, we tried not to. We kind of derailed it sometimes.
Of course you did.
We were residents of that city with the story that came with that. And we owned a building, we owned a pub, and because of that, and because it was in fact a treasure hunt, the way we approached the story was very different.
Absolutely. You have a police force, you have a code legal, you've got guild fees to pay, and if you don't do these things, there will be consequences. So it is quite a different feeling, isn't it? And it's a very urban adventure. You're just surrounded by this living, breathing city, this just host of that. There's well over 100 core NPCs in Dragon Heist, and depending on which paths you choose through it. And that's another thing I really like about both of the adventures I've DM'd, is that Dragon Heist did something a little bit different with the structure. So it was quite experimental. You got to choose your season, and then what season you chose determined the course of events of the adventure. And it began in the same place and would end in the same place, but there was that kind of bit in the middle, that treasure hunt in the middle, where it would be quite different according to which season you picked, and the characters you came across would be different. And I kind of chose the course through the adventure that I thought I would have the most fun running, in terms of the people that you would encounter and the situations you get into, and that I hoped you would find the most fun as well. And the interesting thing they've done with Wild Beyond the Witchlight is the fact that, well, there's a few things really. So they're giving you choices about how you hook your players into the adventure. So you have a choice of 2 major plot hooks. You've got one where you've all lost something precious to you, and you are going to the Feywild in order to recover those lost things. And you have another much more traditional, somebody contacts you to give you a job and it's a rescue mission kind of thing. But either way, you have a kind of fairly solid reason for going into the Feywild. The Lost Things hook is a bit more personal and kind of really gets your characters invested. I combined them basically because I thought they're both quite good. Why not just make it that you're being hired to go on this mission, and the thing that seals the deal is that it'll give you an opportunity to get your lost thing back. So
that's very good.
So that's a really nice thing they did with it. And there's also a lot of people have talked about the fact that this is one of the only modules they've ever produced where combat is entirely optional.
Yes.
Which is really interesting. Now, I think that makes it really adaptable for lots of different tables, because I definitely am bringing combat in because I think the group that's playing really enjoys combat. Or anytime I say roll initiative, they just lose their minds. They're so excited.
There was a genuine cheer on the first roll initiative.
Yeah.
We were all sat there with our dice.
So funny.
Ready to roll them.
So the first chapter takes place at this carnival, the Witchlight Carnival. And so you've got lots of carnival games and rides and things and attractions. The first thing they made a beeline for was the snail racing. So you've got people racing on these giant snails that contrary to what you might think, actually go really fast.
Real fast.
They're really fast. And it got to this point where they'd all picked their snails, and they were sitting on them, and the pixies were, buffing up the shells and all that stuff. And everybody, I realised, I sort of looked up from my books, and everyone was there, dice in hands, shaking them, just waiting for me to say the words. It was so much fun. So yeah, you definitely want those exciting action scenes, and combat can be part of that. So, but I think it's really good that you get the control over that as the DM, and there is a peaceful option, whichever scene or part of the adventure you're in. I think that's really good.
Yeah, it's been sort of like that, more of a design choice now. That obviously D&D in the past was very kind of combat heavy, especially 4th edition. If you remember it, Dan, it was. I know it was just so much combat. Because it just wasn't designed in any other way. But it's nice that they've come out of it and going more towards this, not passive play, but this more choose your own adventure play. Like, not everything has to end in a fight. Not everything has to end in an altercation. And it becomes more engaging, I find, because suddenly you're thinking ways out of situations you didn't before. Because in an older editions, you were like, I have a problem. Okay, we beat it up and it's done. Now you're like, oh, maybe I could do this guy's taxes for him and you'll leave me alone. You're bit of an old example, but you're starting to think outside the box with encounters. You're fighting it with your minds and things. I love that as a new direction.
I mean, what I found kind of interesting, so Julia can tell you that I actually had about 16 characters kind of in the waiting room for this campaign.
Yes, your vault.
My library.
Yeah,
so
couldn't stop inventing characters. Every night it was like, or maybe I'll play a bard.
We'll link like Dan talking about his different characters up at the top there. It's been mentioned a few times.
Has it?
It's but one of the characters was a fighter cavalier. Like, it was a knight. It was a little halfling knight, and the idea, this halfling striding off to try and be a hero from the books that he's read, but instead of a helmet, he's got a frying pan, like saucepan on his head. That sort of like Pauper's Knight kind of feel. But because I knew that Wild Beyond the Witchlight could be so combat light, I actually found myself sitting there for, in inverted commas, the first time thinking, what could my fighter do apart from fight? And then it just made me think about this character build in a number of different ways that I might not have in any other kind of campaign. I just found that particularly kind of interesting. I was just like, who is this fighter beyond his sword and shield?
Gets you thinking, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Julia, on the characters that the players have brought so far?
Yeah,
I love them. I absolutely love them. We've got a really nice mix of characters at the table. So we've got Dan, we've got your goblin artificer, who's a sort of older goblin, a bit curmudgeonly and a bit done with the world. He's kind of which kind of ties in with his lost thing. It's quite interesting. Kind of the thing he lost meant that he kind of lost his zest for invention and his eureka. He lost his eureka.
Lost his inhaler is what he lost.
And yeah, everybody's brought a really fun individual character to the table. We've got the very motherly kind of cook dwarf,
That's pretty cool.
who's a druid, but you wouldn't really know it yet because she's just being herself. We've got a little bunny person.
Nice.
So Harangon is now a player race since Witchlight came out, and so we've got Harangon Paladin, small boy as the player refers to him. We have a warlock. We do have a tabaxi. Our other friend Dan is playing a tabaxi swashbuckler. So yeah, we've got a really lovely array of characters. And what I really love about DMing is watching the players interact with each other. Just sitting back and watching the relationships begin to unfold between the different player characters. I think that's a real joy as a DM. I originally, when I started DMing, I was really scared because I assumed it was a performance. And I guess there are performative elements to it, but more than that, it is a game and it's meant to be fun. And a lot of the time, your players will do it for you. If you've got a really engaged, really keen group of players who really want to be there, you can just let them fill in details and do the thing for you, and you don't have to be running the whole show. Like, you are presenting the show and then they are taking it and running with it. And that's really lovely to watch. And this group that we're playing with on Witchlight is fantastic at that, wouldn't you say, Dan?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, looking around the table, like, there are some really kind of amazingly creative like people sat across from me. Sophie is a Doctor Who screenplay writer. We have Chris and Nate. They have their own podcast. Nate's massively into graphic design and art, all over Twitter, and Nate does improv. Like, they all just bring so many different artistic skills to the table, and it just brings the whole thing to life. It's amazing.
I realized that just as we were about to get started, we had a table of artists and DMs and improv performers, and it was just I feel really lucky with the groups I've got to DM before. Then the group I started with Anton and Dan and a few other people, it was, I wouldn't say it was as outwardly creative a table. It wasn't people all in creative careers.
Just say we're boring, Julia.
No. But I'm saying you don't need.
It all comes out now. She's got a new group.
Oi!
You're all chopped liver.
I'm saying you don't need to have people in creative careers to have a good table of players.
For sure.
But that original group that you guys were in was absolutely wonderful to DM for, because again, because you're all just so up for it and so keen to be there. That's the thing. I think you need your players to really love it and want to be playing the game and being in the game with everybody else. I think that's what makes for a fun table.
It really does make the difference, doesn't it, when you see them engaged, or when I think I've mentioned in the past, when they start relaying the lore back to you, and you know that point that you have them right there in the moment.
Definitely, yeah. No,
without
lovely.
any spoilers, Julia,
okay,
what is one element of Wild Beyond the Witchlight that you are looking forward to? Is there a particular scene or place?
Oh, there are so many. I'm really excited.
Might have to block his ears out. But
oh my gosh, I think one of the things I love about Wild Beyond the Witchlight is it's full of unusual types of creature and character. Like, it's full of all these fey creatures that you might come across once in a blue moon in a traditional campaign, but this campaign is full of them. You've got satyrs, and you've got Eladrin and pixies and displacer beasts and hags, and you've just that's the bread and butter of this world. And so there's and the rules of the world just don't work like they do on the material plane. In the Feywild, everything's upside down, and it's like a mirror to the regular world that you spend most of your time in when you're playing D&D 5e. Very whimsical. Yeah, and there's so many scenes I'm really looking forward to, but I don't feel I can say anything without spoiling it.
All I know is that there are definitely some sort of race of like mole gerbil people.
The mole gerbil people.
I have no context to their existence.
What?
But, right? They're just they're little mole gerbil people with candle
What are
hats.
they called? It's gone out of my head. But no, that they are. There's so many weird little things. There's them. There are like these little industrious mouse people who like live in like rocky areas. There's another rocky type creature called a Kored that is like kind of made of stone and has this incredibly strong hair that they can use as a tool or a weapon.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre. It's a bizarre role place, and there's a few key scenes that I'm really looking forward to, because the thing I love about DMing is the role play. That is my favorite part. Embodying different characters, creating fun moments, creating emotional moments, all of that. And there's just so many opportunities for that in Witchlight, but also in this slightly strange, unfamiliar settings. That's going to be really, really good.
So,
Awesome.
Who is your most problematic character, and why is it Dan?
Oh, it's always going to be Dan.
Isn't it?
I remember Dan's character from Dragon Heist was delightful, but also the troublemaker by design, I think.
Yeah, even in my campaigns, he has always been the one that causes the most trouble.
Yeah, Azorius Lovecraft.
I feel like you're painting a terrible picture of me.
Well, the thing is, I think my theory is that because you're constantly DMing, when you do get to be a player, you go, right, my turn.
I get my revenge. Yeah.
You get your revenge. You take it all out on the table in front of you. But yeah, Azorius Lovecraft, the gnome swashbuckler, blade singer.
Cartographer extraordinaire.
It's just always
And
ready with a comedy line and ready to create some trouble or join a cult by mistake or whatever. So in some ways you were the most problematic character at the table, but in other ways you were one of the best characters at the table because you're so good at not metagaming. You, Dan, were like, this is a bloody cult. And as Azorius, you were like, of course I'll take a flyer. What's this? I'll come to your meeting. Yes.
Oh, free biscuits. Oh, lovely.
I 100% agree with that, Julia. Like, I'd say he's a menace, but he is also such a fantastic player and doesn't go out of his way to ruin it. It just goes out the way to actually make it more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Now that you have DM'd,
yes,
like you were a player, you became a DM. You went back to being a player. How do you feel that experience as a DM affected your abilities as a player? Like, how do you think that affected your game when you were playing, say, Badger?
Yeah, so it's funny. I think just generally, I've noticed it in both the games I've been playing in. I noticed it in Cormier campaign, and I've noticed it in our Thursday night group. But we're playing Curse of Strahd over on Roll20 on Thursday nights. What I've really noticed is that my knowledge of the game is so much better now for having DM'd. And even though I still don't feel like I know enough of the rules and all that sort of stuff, I'm a hell of a lot better now. And I'm pretty convinced it's because I DM'd for a year and a half.
Yeah.
I think it just does force you to pay more attention and learn the rules of the game better. So I think that's one of the big things that DMing has given me.
And in hindsight, was it as bad as you thought it might have been?
In most ways, no.
Like taking that step.
No, it definitely wasn't as bad as I expected. I think the thing that really floored me was that even when I didn't think it had gone particularly well, even when I was looking back at a session and thinking, God, I could have done that so much better, people were still having fun. And that was incredible. I thought, because actually they don't know. Your players don't know if you've messed something up. You know, but
you're letting the secrets out. Don't
it's a bit like DM's table.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But it's a little bit like if you're a performer of any kind, really. If you're a musician or whatever, if you're an actor, you know when you've forgotten the lines, you know when you've screwed a particular chord progression up or whatever. But actually, most of the people watching your performance are probably not going to catch on. So yeah, that was one of the things that surprised me most about DMing, was the fact that I went into it expecting to be kind of all of my flaws to be laid bare and everybody to be really judgmental, and actually they're not. People are just really grateful that you have stepped up. That you are presenting a story to them and you're doing all the hard work. And so, yeah, people having fun despite the problems I could see with what I was doing was really nice. And it definitely meant that the whole experience ended up being way more positive than I expected. And I suspect that's at least partly to do with the players I've been lucky enough to have.
I suppose the important thing on that note is that there are always amazing players that are in need of a games master of some description.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, I guess it is easy to jump into it, right? So yeah, just give it a go.
Definitely, just give it a go. Yeah.
So I think with the final question then is, will we be seeing you DMing on the Explorers of Elsewhere at some point? Now you've left and you're free.
Oh,
Will you be coming doing a
Yeah.
one-shot for us?
One shot,
it.
I would love to. I think we've already talked about doing a Lasers and Feelings one
Yes.
shot, haven't we? So we did a charity stream back in, when was it, February time?
February.
So if you want to check that out, there are some amazing one-page RPGs that we played. We played 3 over the course of the day. Dan DM'd or GM'd 2 of them. The what was the first one called? All Out of Bubblegum.
All Out Bubblegum.
Yeah, and then Jason
Jason.
Statham's Big Vacation, which we were all in, and is one of my
Amazing.
favorite bits of RPG work I've ever done. It was fantastic. Go and watch it.
So much
And you can watch it here.
Exactly. But then we played a game of Lasers and Feelings, which is a space themed one-page RPG, sci-fi space. And before the stream, Dan was going, "Oh, I don't feel as good about doing a sci-fi themed one," and I went, "I'll do it," because I'd been watching Dimension 20's latest long campaign, Starstruck
amazing.
Odyssey. It's so good, and it really was inspirational. So I thought I'll do Lasers and Feelings, and I really enjoyed it. So you can watch that on the channel if you go back a bit, and I'd be really happy to do a one shot for you guys, definitely.
I can have a week off.
Yes, exactly.
So with that, I think we should start moving on. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to this video, as it really does help us out. Now, we're going to go into the players' round.
Oh, it's a Briganock!
Thanks for watching. We release segments like this from the Tavern Between Dimensions every Friday here on the Explorers of Elsewhere channel. Otherwise, if you want to listen to the episode in full, you can check us out on Spotify and Amazon Music.